Hello, this is Tanya Cunningham in Madison, Wisconsin. I wanted to make a video to address a discussion that had been occurring on one of the online forums about this method of chaining across the needles, either in front of or behind the stitches, and using the latch tool hook from above or from below. Typically, I think most of us have done it with the latch hook below the needles. The question is, can you do it from above? And if not, why not? So I thought I'd give it a try. Um, anyway, this is obviously going behind the stitches and going using the latch hook above above the needles. It was awkward for me because I'm right-handed and the yarn was going off to the left. But anyway, I did manage to do it with some difficulty. I don't think I would do this as a normal course. Um, I found that it was really awkward to try and get at the yarn with the latch hook in the proper orientation, and a lot of times I couldn't really see very well underneath the needles. So I'm just going to speed through some of this. Obviously, I did manage to get it done, but it was very slow and quite awkward. I decided to turn direction and go back the other way. This gave me an opportunity to put the latch hook in my right hand, which was more comfortable for me. And I apologize, my hand's in the way of most of this, but it was a little bit easier with my with the latch hook in my right hand, but still had the problem of not being able to see very well underneath the needles. So then I'll just, after I get the last loop onto the needle, I'll knit this off, knit a few stitches, take it off, and we can see what it looks like. So here it is. I've usually used this as an edging, so I can't say how it looks different in the middle of a piece of knitting, but you can see on the stockinette side, it's really just kind of a bump. The row is a bump. And then on the purl side, you can see the chains. Um, and that's what that looks like. Um, and then next I thought I'd try with doing the chain in front of the stitches. So again, I knit a few rows. I'll bring the needles out and chain both. I'll do one segment chaining with the latch hook tool below the needles and then above the needles. And I did find that chaining with the latch tool below the needles was just a whole lot easier. I think mostly because you have leeway to position the yarn in a much better angle. But also because you can see what you're doing with the when the latch hook when the hook comes up through between the needles, you can see its relationship to the yarn. When you're working from above, it's just that much more hard to see where the hook is, where the yarn is, and so forth. And I'll speed through some of this, but this was much easier than using the latch hook tool above the needles. And then I'll knit this one for a few rows, and then I'll try the same thing except with the latch tool above the needles and the yarn below, and I think you might see the difference. And even though I'm working in front of the knitting, um, I still found it much more difficult to see what I was doing. And I apologize for my hand being in the way for most of this, so I'm just going to speed through a lot of this. Did get it done, but it was still much more difficult. get to the end, get the last loop, put on that last needle, and then again knit a few rows off and take it off the machine and see what it looks like and compare it to the other one. So there it is. They don't look that different. The chain is on the purl side. The stockinette side, the knit side, doesn't have as much of a bump. It almost looks like more like a seam, but nothing really sticks out as compared to the first one. There's the purl side with the chains showing, and on the knit side, it's a little bit more, once I get my hand out of the way, it's a little bit more of a bump. But in both cases, in all cases, the chains do show up on the purl side. Not a whole lot of difference between whether you do it in front of or behind the stitches.